but not exposing anyone unnecessarily. So what that means for the public is that you may see activities occurring during non-traditional hours. No need to be alarmed. We won't be breaking our own noise bylaws, so we'll keep that top of mind. But it's just one way that we're going to keep things rolling here without necessarily without contributing to the spread. From a corporate point of view, the Emergency Control Group has met on 5 occasions since the outbreak pandemic was declared. I can tell you we're looking at all aspects of the operation to make sure that we're able to function while protecting staff and the public. We are exploring alternate work arrangements for staff. We already have some staff working from home. We're probably going to be transitioning to shifts where people come in on alternating days or alternating weeks. So our objective is to continue, obviously, to provide the services that are needed, but do that in a very safe way. So the way we accomplish work may change, but our commitment is to continue providing the services that we do. Again, tomorrow's announcement may change things, but as of 5 o'clock today, we're still functioning in many of the services that people come to expect. We're just doing it differently. Be happy to take any questions.
Councillor McKenna.
I just want to thank CEO Morris and your entire staff for this work through very difficult times. Many of them have young family, and I really appreciate, I know the citizens of Smiths Falls appreciate all the efforts of the staff, and please pass that along to everyone.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Pardon me? Oh, Councillor McGuire, did you have a, sorry.
Thanks. Do we know if we're in a position to provide childcare services to frontline workers during the next few weeks?
Yeah, so that's a good question, a very topical one. We have been reaching out to assess the demand for that type of service. It seems, of course, last week we were instructed to close our daycare facilities. There have been discussions at the provincial level to potentially provide that service. So we'll know more on Wednesday, and we'll keep council informed of any reintroduction of service for emergency services personnel.
Thank you for that. We had one correspondence item, and that was a letter from Douglas Brown, the Chief of Emergency Management, and it was just congratulating us on having a very good plan for 2019 and looking forward to working with us in 2020. Does anyone have any other comments from that letter? No. Okay, thank you. There are no in-camera issues. Our priority issues start tonight with community donation, grant donation, with Councillor Alford, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're all painfully aware of what happened over the last week in Smiths Falls with restaurants closing down and people being thrown out of work. I called Natalia Soderhoff, the manager of the Smiths Falls Community Food Bank, on Friday just to ask how they were making out so far and what they were expecting. She said that they've seen some uptick, and that was just last week. But for right this moment, they're okay with the supplies and the volunteers that they have. They have made changes to protect their clients and protect their volunteers as well. Since we now know that this is likely to last longer than 2 weeks, and I think we can all agree that the need is only likely to increase, and the demand for the food bank to support people who are struggling. The federal and provincial governments have rolled out aid packages, and they're on their way. Smiths Falls doesn't have the resources that the Prime Minister and the Premier do, but we currently have $17,000 in our community donations envelope, and I'm proposing that we earmark $10,000 of that for the food bank. The food bank folks can turn $10,000 into many more times $10,000 with the support of our local business community. So this isn't the normal way that people access the community donations envelope, but I do think that it's going to be needed. It's another way in which Smiths Falls, the municipality, can support those people who are struggling. So I'm suggesting to my council colleagues that we earmark 10,000 of that to go to the food bank when they need it, so that nothing else gets in the way of them getting that. I know there is help coming from the province, it appears just today. There may be some help coming for the food banks as well, which will be well appreciated, I'm sure. So, but that doesn't mean that we have the opportunity to pledge $10,000 to that effort if they need more staff, more technology, more storage, or more food. That $10,000 would be earmarked for the food bank for the next foreseeable future, as we know right now.
Can I just ask a quick question now? Have you been in conversation with them? I can't.
I am. I called, I called Natalia on Friday to see how they were now, as I said, and for this moment, they are okay.
But are people still able to come there?
Yes, people are still able to go there. Have some restrictions on how many people. Yeah, they have some restrictions on how many people.
I have had that question and I wasn't sure at this point, but
they have some restrictions on how many can go in and how it is, how the process has changed to accommodate them. But so far, at least Friday, Natalia felt that for the time being, they're okay.
Good.
But I think even more recent developments and provincial shutdowns and more people out of work are only exacerbate what we're expecting over the next weeks.
For sure. Mayor Penko?
Yeah, I think there's obviously pretty broad needs across our community, which will only probably get more difficult as more mandatory closures happen, probably later this week. So I think in principle I support the whole concept. I mean, a process where they would have to apply. And we will probably know more tomorrow, we think, or later this week again, how much of the provincial dollars that have been allocated and with money allocated towards food banks, when that gets defined, a better idea where that will be. I know I was at Walmart, I think it was Saturday, and they were collecting donations at the cash also for our food bank. So there are a lot of resources out there working towards trying to help fill the needs of our community. And I think as we go through this, we'll be trying to understand what gaps are not being filled at the federal provincial level and seeing where we can help. So as I would say, in principle, I support the concept. We'd have to wait and see what their needs are, and they'd have to make the application, I guess. So.
Yeah, and my thought was if we earmark the $10,000, Mr. Mayor, then the necessity for following a normal process, because these are not normal times of taking them away from the good work they do to process an application and have our staff go through it and assess it. I'm suggesting that we earmark it for them so that and when they're ready, when the need arises, that money is there, and we can forego the application process.
Yeah, I guess you'd be looking for at least some type of probably request. I suppose we can make exceptions to our current policy as we did last week for.
That's what I'm suggesting. Is we made that exception last week, and I think this is another time when we can make an exception.
So for clarity, are you asking that we make a decision on whether we provide 10,000, like cut the check now, or wait until we hear from them regarding what their needs, expect their needs will be?
I'm suggesting that we set that aside with the tag Smiths Falls Community Food Bank on it, that be dedicated to that, whether we cut the check now or later. Their need is not, as I said, for Natalia feels they're fine right now, but that they go to the head of the line with regard to the rest of the $10,000 from the community donations envelope.
Yeah, I would certainly agree that they be at the front of the line when it comes to. I mean, we're going to look at food security being a big issue. We've addressed it in some capacity in the past. I mean, there's obviously we're not going to meet the needs, but I agree with that statement.
Others? Councillor McKenna?
So I supported the idea as well of holding that all of the 17,000 for some gap in service that we don't know yet at this point. And food security is probably the most, right on the top of the list. So I don't think we had planned for anything else, but if there is an essential service comes forward that the federal or provincial government isn't meeting and our local community can benefit, I like the idea of let's just sit on that food right at the top of the list. And as we learn a little bit more over the next couple of weeks, we can decide on how to disperse that if need be.
Yes, Councillor Alford.
Yeah, the word that the province was going to allocate monies towards food banks, I think was today's news. So, in absence of that, I think I see nodding heads that this what we've got left in community donations, the food bank is a perfect vehicle for it. We've just recently donated close to $50,000 to another food security effort. So that was my thinking.
And so just question to Clerk Bennett then in that regard. Will we need to do a priority issue just to have that recognized, that we've dealt with that and how we've dealt with it?
So I hope it's okay, I go ahead. The Councillor Alford has submitted the request as a priority issue, so the directive will come forward. Now, typically, because a grant is $10,000 or more, we enter into a memorandum of understanding, and that memorandum just details what the money would be used for. Mm-hmm. So council could do two things. They could bring forward a bylaw tonight to authorize a memorandum of understanding with the Smiths Falls Food Bank respecting community grants. And in the base of the bylaw, there would be an exemption to your current policy with respecting community grants that would eliminate the process for application. So you're able to do that if you want to go ahead and commit the $10,000. We would stipulate in the agreement, I think, as Councillor Alford said, for technology, space, or food. That would be stipulated in the agreement, and that be brought forward tonight. Or you could, if you want to give council or staff direction with respect to that whole 17,000, that it be earmarked for whatever needs. It's your decision, but certainly you could bring forward an MOU tonight to allocate that funds with an exemption to the procurement bylaw or to the community grants bylaw.
Thoughts on that? I think I, like Councillor McKenna, would like it all earmarked for some kind of contingency amount of money for the emergencies that we may find. And it might be all food, but it might be other things, because at this point we're not sure. And so having that money, if we set it all up in that manner, it then wouldn't mean that it would all have to be food. It could be some food and some other things, depending on what happens.
And that could also happen by resolution. You can give us that direction. It would depend if you want to give the authority to the CAO to determine, the items, or if you want to come back to council again and give directive as to what items you want that 17,000 to go to.
How do people feel? Councillor McGuire?
I'm comfortable earmarking the 10,000 for food,
Okay.
but I definitely think, based on how long this could go on for, we might need to keep having these discussions and go more in depth, based on other needs that may come forward in the community.
Okay, so is everyone okay with just, Mayor Panko, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just, if we look at item F, we're likely going to be able to continue to meet virtually, assuming council agrees to take that step. So it could be addressed next week. I'd like to find out what the province is rolling out when it comes to the food banks first. No matter what, it's not likely going to meet all the need, but I'd just like to understand what that is before we commit that, understanding there are broad needs across the community.
So can we do that? Wait till next week when we're probably virtually meeting after we know?
So next week is, and I don't want to speak out of turn, obviously, but it's the 5th Monday of the month, so we don't have a meeting scheduled for the 30th. However, we seek the direction of council.
First week of April?
Yeah. Or if there's an emergency meeting required, certainly through the CAO, we can call something like that and the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess part of the challenge is we don't know how quickly our food bank will be potentially drained of its resources. When there is money collected at Walmart on the weekend, I'm not sure what would be collected. I don't know what they have in reserve, and for the most part, I think most people who are facing job loss are just facing it now. I know there's 500,000 Canadians who applied for EI last week, which is 2.5% of the workforce. So if we translate that here, it probably means we have a couple hundred people here or more who would have applied for EI locally last week. I know through the county that applications to Ontario Works is also was up quite a bit last week. So the needs are strong today, and they're only going to get more profound. So,
CAO Morris, did you want to speak to that? You can.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point, to my knowledge, we haven't received any applications for community grants. So, as a suggestion, what I would propose is that we simply suspend the community grants program temporarily, and then we have 17,000 sitting there, and you can decide later how you want to spend that. But I would say, given the emergency situation we're in, we simply suspend the program. Therefore, we won't take more applications and won't spend more money. Then you have flexibility to spend it as the demonstrated need arises.
I guess with the understanding that it's earmarked, let's say, to food security or towards issues related to this crisis.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I would
So-
be satisfied with that.
So do we need to write that up, or will we wait and deal with it in April? Okay, so that will be priority, well, do we have to put it in the priority issues or just bring it to council? Okay. Thank you very much for that, everyone. Okay, moving along, priority issue B is lifting of part lot control plan 27M83, block 7, 8, and 9, and it's with Senior Planner Grinke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess with the two reports are my two reports this evening are thematically linked, but I'll just go into the part lot control one first. So as council will recall, the Bellamy Farm subdivision, consisting of townhomes along Ferreira Drive, continues to build out. And as part of the planning, the original planning for that, as is normal in townhouse development, we were approving the townhouse blocks as the subdivision agreement had specified townhouse blocks, and as these blocks then get developed, typically the lot lines aren't actually laid down until at least the foundations are in the ground, or at least construction's underway, so the surveyor can pin them exactly along where those walls are. So at this point in time, the applicants have applied for part lot control for 3 of the blocks, 7, 8, and 9, that are four townhouse units each. So the part lot control provisions of the Planning Act allow us to essentially divide these blocks into individual lots so that they can individually be sold. So the second part of my the other report relates to the zoning. So technically, we cannot pass the part lot control to create these lots until the lots meet the minimum lot size requirements of our zoning bylaw. So that's the other part that we're looking at. Parkview has made an application to that end. So if council supports the zoning, thereby allowing us to create lot sizes of around 160 square meters per lot, then at that point we can pass a bylaw to lift the part lot control provisions and create these individual lots, and that's the staff recommendation at this point. The bylaw cannot take effect until the final zoning is approved. So if council approves the zoning and the committee of the whole supports the application to lift part lot control, then the draft survey the applicants provided can then be deposited, and the bylaw take effect when the time comes. So that's the first recommendation I have tonight, is to support the part lot control and direct the bylaw for when the survey is deposited. Any questions from council?
Mayor Panko?
Thanks, Carl. Very good news. I'm sure it'd be great to have those units occupied and people living there. Do we know yet when they will be planned for completion? What stage they're at?
So I understand from the developers that they are looking to sell some of the first couple of these units sometime in April. So I'm not sure if that's going to I guess nobody knows if the recent events are changing the parameters of that, but ideally what they're hoping for is for the first phase to be built out within the next year or so, and that first phase includes a total of 63 townhouse units.
So the step today enables those first 12 to
12.
move forward.
Yep, so then we'll be bringing forward more as these get built out.
Great, thank you.
My only question was the question of, they want to, my understanding, if I've read it correctly, they want to then apply this to their future builds. Like right now, they're just doing their first of 3 builds, right?
Yep, so the part lock.
Parkview I'm talking about.
So part lock control, they're going to need, procedurally, we need to pass a bylaw to lift part lock control for every block that gets lifted. So I'm going to have to be coming back with more reports and bylaws as this gets built out. But what they're asking for the rest of for these blocks and the rest of the blocks in the subdivision is permission to allow to reduce the lot sizes to 160 square meters per lot, and that's what they're looking for these blocks and for the future.
Development ones as well.
So there wouldn't be more minor variances required in the future.
Okay, can you explain to me, I mean, I read it, I understand it, but the logic of making the ones in the middle smaller and having 2 extra large on the end, what's the rationale really about that? You're not getting any more homes built, it's the same number.
Yep.
And isn't the standard practice to have equal size lots or green space?
Well, and that's certainly, there was a good discussion at the public meeting last couple of weeks ago when this came up, and certainly Councillor Alford can fill me in there. But this is simply a design preference for Parkview homes. So I think in this case they view the opportunity to create some smaller, narrower lots allows a lower price point for some of these townhouse units, and then there's a higher price point for the end units that are on lots that are larger than anticipated.
But the size of each one would be the same, is that right? Other than the lot?
The size of the interior ones would all be around 100, in the range of 163, 164 square meters, and the end units would be larger in the range of 250 square meters.
Okay, all right. Councillor Alfred?
Yes, we dealt with this a couple of times, and we've actually set a precedent for this, and it came forward to council. It was on one set, three townhouses linked together. So the 2 end spots have the bigger yard, and the middle one has the smaller yard. And we passed that about a month ago on one townhouse. Now Parkview is wanting it to do it on all their townhouses that are currently under construction. So I asked the same question you did. What was the rationale for wanting these smaller middle units? And I understand their business case. It's there are people who only want small yards.
Right.
The houses are not markedly different. The size inside are not markedly different, but the lots certainly are.
Right.
So, and to me, that's the developer is deciding what his market needs to be.
Right.
So I didn't have an issue with it there or at council for the first one that we did, and this is just making so we don't have to do it one at a time.
Well, I guess my question to both of you, though, is my understanding, if I've read it all correctly, is the other ones may not be for another year or more, right? The other builds?
Correct.
So, sitting on the Housing Task Force, as I do, I'm curious at earmarking it for that kind of structures if maybe we find, when we do our research, that we really need other kinds of housing, smaller apartments for more seniors or that kind of thing. Do we have an opportunity for that, or does Parkview are they only offering to do townhouses throughout?
At this point, the proposed zoning amendment only applies to townhouse development. So the current zoning for most of the subdivision allows single, semis, and townhouses, and then the townhouse provisions establish lot size requirements of 200 square meters. So all that they're doing through this application, they're not looking to change the permitted uses, they're looking to just allow townhomes on smaller lots and a little bit of flexibility as far as that goes. So I'm not aware, so this application doesn't really change the allowable uses or that sort of configuration throughout the site. They're just looking for a little bit of flexibility at that location. There, as part of the phase 1 of Bellamy Farms, though, there is an apartment block that was approved, and that's and there's been some discussion there. So we're expecting the construction of an apartment building in that sort of where Ferreira Drive and the Cataraqui Trail meet. So that was originally planned as part of this part of the entire process. So this application doesn't affect that land at all. It just allows smaller townhomes throughout the subdivision. And as Councillor Alford mentioned, we approved a minor variance back in the planning committee approved a minor variance in late December, just as a one-off to allow the division and the sale of those blocks. And this application is intended to cover the rest so that they're not coming back to us with minor variance applications often.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor McKenna, did you have a comment?
Just I'm in support of the staff recommendation on this matter.
Okay, I think Councillor McGuire, that's a thumbs up. I guess everybody's supportive of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Now, did we deal with both of those?
Well,
Are you satisfied that we've dealt with both of those to move on to council?
Oh, I can certainly, I think the previous report was, and recommendation just related to the part law
Right.
control itself.
Right. I think we understand that, all of us. So moving on to D, parking enforcement measures during COVID-19 pandemic report is with Clerk Bennett, I believe.
So just to confirm the action of Carl's, I just wanted to confirm that for the public. There'll be a bylaw tonight for rezoning, but part lot control won't come forward tonight.
It won't?
No, just the zoning bylaw will come forward. So tonight I'm here to bring forward a report, and I think the report on the website is quite explanatory. And so I won't read it all, but what we're trying to do is to provide some relief during the COVID-19 pandemic. And staff are recommending that we suspend the required payment for parking at a metered parking spot and on our municipal lot, which is located on Market and William Street. Parking is enforced between 9 and 5 in the downtown, Monday to Friday. And we're suggesting that our bylaw officers continue to park the in excess of 2 hours at a metered space to encourage turnover, as well as they will continue to enforce limited prohibited parking areas, no stopping areas, designated spaces, disabled spaces, and all the other provisions in the bylaw. So tonight we're seeking that from council. The report does detail that recommendation, and we're hoping that we can bring forward a bylaw to tonight's meeting.
Councillor Alford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I applaud staff for bringing this forward. The DBA had a meeting set up, and but unfortunately COVID-19 got in the way of that, or they would have been suggesting something very similar to what you've come up with. So I applaud you on that, and I look forward to reinforcing my pleasure at it tonight at council.
Councillor McGuire, sorry.
Thanks a lot, Nadine. I'm wondering if it's possible to extend this bylaw so that we don't charge for parking for the entire extent of the construction on Beckwith Street. Is that an easy combination, or would it be better to do it in two separate things?
Yeah, I'm going to get the CO just to confirm.
Through the chair, I think given the uncertainty around how long the pandemic may last, it's written in such a way that you can change it at your will. So it doesn't necessarily have to revert back to paid parking after the pandemic is over. You could extend that for as long as you wish. So I think there's flexibility in the wording to enable that to happen.
Okay, and just to confirm, right now it goes until we decide it's over, or it?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, the next one, E, is municipal interest penalties charges during the COVID-19 report with CAO Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm filling in for Janet, Treasurer Kozil this evening. So you have in front of you a recommendation, again, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We felt that there are a lot of financial pressures coming to bear on people, and this is one opportunity for Council to consider providing some relief. So we have, of course, tax collection policies. We have 4 installments on our taxes. This will be a reminder. February 28th was the first, April 30th is the second, June 30th is the third, and August 31st is the 4th installment. What we're proposing in this report is to waive penalties, in this case in the form of interest, on amounts owing beyond those deadlines. So what that would amount to in an approximate way would be approximately $25,000 in interest revenue, revenue in the form of interest that we would normally collect. So it's fairly straightforward, but I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor Panko?
Well, thanks, staff, for being proactive with this and seeing the potential impact basically to our bottom line. And we have to remember that ultimately that any reduction in revenue we have is borne by the taxpayer anyway. And at this stage, I think it's critically important that those that are going through some financial challenges, and which could represent a good portion of our population right now, at least have the flexibility to, if they've got to defer payment on something, to make sure they can pay their rent or pay their mortgage or buy their groceries, etc. I mean, I think we can. I support the recommendation to defer any penalties on tax and water bills and water sewer bills. So there will be some impact to the municipality, but I think it'll be relatively modest. And I think we just have to, our citizens need to know that. I mean, we're willing to try and work with them and try and make sure this is as easy as possible and help them get through what will be a difficult time. And I don't think we can put a deadline on this as to when policies would revert back. I think we have to be patient, understanding that the impact of this may be longer lasting and certainly very broad to our community. So I fully support the recommendation.
Did you want to comment?
In terms of the expiration, we worded it basically until the bylaw is repealed. So much like parking, you have control over when you want to reverse it. I should mention in full disclosure that under normal circumstances, from a cash flow perspective, our revenues exceed our expenses, so we're able to function without borrowing money to keep the lights on. And you'll recall a couple of weeks ago you approved a temporary borrowing bylaw, so we have that in place in the event we need it. This may give rise to using that temporary borrowing provision. We will try and avoid that as much as possible, and it will be entirely dependent on what this policy would do to cash flow. So we will keep you informed if we have an abundance of folks not paying and we're not collecting the cash. We may have to borrow money to keep things operating, but we'll keep you informed as to how that's going. At this point, we're not considering an extensive cost for borrowing for this policy decision.
Councillor Alford, did you have a comment?
Just, I am supportive, as I'm sure we all are, of any efforts we can undertake to ease the burden for what we know is going to be inflicted on several of our townspeople. So if this is one small way that we can take some of the stress off them in terms of interest and penalties, I'm fully supportive.
Councillor McKenna?
Yes, I'm supportive as well. The thought that occurs, just to remind people in Smiths Falls like to pay their bills on time, and if you have the capacity to do that, please continue. We're not saying don't pay your bills on time. If you can do that, please do it, because there's some extraordinary services the town needs to continue to deliver on, and water and safety and emergency services. So we do need the revenue but we understand, and for those folks who are having difficulty paying that, but if you can, please do. We do need to keep the lights on and services delivered, essential services to everyone involved. So this is an important first step, and I think may have to look at some more going forward. And I too appreciate the staff considering this on behalf of the residents.
Yes, thank you for that. So I guess you can stay there because you are up again, and this time it's with F, Municipal Emergencies Act 2020 report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So on this one, I'm representing Director Costello. I'll just take you back in time. The previous council had made a decision to not enable virtual meetings. And there were a variety of reasons for that. The Municipal Act allows it, but you need a quorum of council in the room for the meeting to proceed and be a formal meeting where you can make decisions. The previous council decided not to do that. Under the current circumstances, there may be a strong case to look at this as an option. The province amended the Municipal Act last week, so they've opened the door. And just to be clear, the only change is you don't need quorum in the room. You can have a virtual quorum to hold a meeting. So that certainly paves the way for a different way of holding a meeting. So what we're suggesting is, and we appreciate everyone, the 5 members of council being here this evening to keep the business of council moving forward. But given the uncertainty in front of us, it may be wise to have the option to do a virtual meeting. So we've identified several options. We're working out the details on those options. And so I apologize, we don't have all the details tonight on how it would work. But as a matter of principle, meetings have to be open to the public unless it's an in-camera closed meeting. And my commitment to you is to avoid in-camera meetings to the extent possible while it's being done virtually, because that can get complicated. So if we're conducting normal open session business, we think this is a good option. The province has allowed it to happen. All you need to do is to amend the procedural bylaw to enable it to happen. We'll work out the details and get back to you on how it's going to happen, or how it could happen.
Councillor Alford?
I'm assuming, CAO Morris, that there is some, and I'm aware of some technology that would help. And I'm assuming that that's some of the research you're undertaking to be able to hold these as open meetings virtually. Okay, so I am aware of some of the technology, so once that's in place, it should simplify things as well.
Yeah.
Mayor Penko?
No, I support the recommendation. We're living in a period of uncertainty, and there's still a number of things that we learned being here tonight that really need to get completed in order for business to move forward in many ways. And if we can do it virtually, and again, if this takes months before it rolls through, we need to be able to continue on. So I support the recommendation, and we can leave it up to staff to determine the how.
Yeah. Councillor Alford?
Just one more comment. Well, I'm going to be grateful that we're going to have that option, particularly during this emergency, but this would not be the optimum way. I would not want to keep this after the emergency is over. In that, I agree with former council.
CAO Morris, did you want to reply to that?
Not a reply, just another comment. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the good people at Your TV have offered to continue live streaming, so that helps our quest to hold a virtual meeting. So the camera could be set up, the crew could be here, but none of you necessarily have to be in the room. So we just need to reconcile how we do that and yet allow the public to participate in some fashion.
Right. Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, I'm supportive of this as well. Is it possible to ask about and there's not to catch a CEO off guard, but our Association of Municipalities of Ontario just sent out an update today. One talking about virtual meetings, but the province's Ontario Regulation 73-20, and it's covered under that. I'm reading it, otherwise I wouldn't know it. But it does talk about broader legislation that could help municipalities during this time of crisis, not just virtual meetings. But there is a statement, and I don't expect an answer today, but I would like to understand it better, where the municipal sector has asked the province to pause on all provincial statutes, regulations, rules that municipal governments must follow currently during this COVID emergency. So I just need to understand that better, that a pause on all during this, that applies to all regulations, statutes, and so I'm not sure, it's not clear to me, it's more of a question for AMO, but perhaps if you could look into that, I would like to understand that better. It seems like a very broad ask to the province, so it just came out today.
Yes, there's a lot of fresh information out there, and I share your concern. I'm not sure what is meant by that. It seems rather sweeping.
It is.
But we will endeavor to get some clarity.
Thank you.
Councillor Alford?
Just one more question with regard to the virtual meetings. Is this would apply to committees of council as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just because all committees have ceased functioning during this time, and yet eventually this emergency will be over. And if there's an opportunity for committees as well to virtually meet to move their agendas forward, you've got a lot of people at home who are looking for something to do, so perhaps perhaps we could, once you've decided how this works, can we get that information out to committees of council? So if they wish to have virtual meetings, they would be in this too.
Through the chair, if I may, excellent point. We do have a lot of committees that are idling right now. So we would, as a matter of priority, look at the statutory committees, like the Planning Advisory as an example, so that we can keep, hopefully, the development works proceeding. Again, tomorrow's announcement, I think, will provide direction in terms of how much work will continue to occur. But I think as a matter of principle, yes, we can look at all the committees, starting with the statutory ones.
And Councillor McKenna has another comment.
I just wonder, through you, Madam Chair, that what my colleagues would think if the chair of any committee of council or would actually take the seat here for the camera, would that, rather than looking at empty space, I wonder if we could chair the meeting from here while the rest of us are on. It might present a little more, it would be the hub, and if something goes wrong with the technology, we're in the room with staff to give advice. So just consider that. I don't know if my colleagues would feel comfortable coming out, but this is, I consider, essential service that we keep the business in municipality going. It might look better to have the chair here, and thank you. Just a consideration.
Councillor McGuire.
Thank you. Will we be looking into getting involved with a video conferencing service, or are we expecting it to be more of a phone-in?
I think it could be either. If council had a preference for video, then that would be our focus.
Okay, I think from past experience, definitely phone-in seems to be the best for audio quality. But if we can get a direct recording of the audio that's going with the video at the same time, then we can get that online rather than when we're talking about your TV live streaming it. I think it'd be problematic to have the camera in here on a screen that's got us on video. Every time we increase the recording, the quality is going to go down, and it's going to defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do. So I'd like to see a really tried and true method of video conferencing that's going to have the audio and the visual quality that we need, and also give some of the opportunities that are missed when you don't have the visual cues. So
we'll take that direction and bring it back in a suggestion on the format to be used.
Thank you very much. Okay, our last priority issue, if you remember, was with Clerk Bennett. She's going to talk to us about banking.
Good evening. Council provides directive to staff to attend the bank to conduct banking on behalf of the town of Smiths Falls in the form of a resolution. And we do currently have a resolution in place with some staffing that can attend the bank. However, I'm requesting tonight that council bring forward a resolution, and in the resolution, it'll rescind our former resolution to update the list, as we do have a new staff member who is joining corporate services, and we want to add her to that list. So if we can do that, then we have many staff that can attend the bank.
And that will come forward tonight as well?
Yeah.
So I see nodding heads all around.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And so I would adjourn our meeting tonight at 5:50. And, pardon? I'll move that. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor McGuire. All in favor? And will we have a quick turnaround before we, as soon as staff's ready to go, we'll start with our council meeting.
Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of Smiths Falls Town Council for Monday, March 23rd. We have regrets this evening from Councillor Brennan and Councillor Dwyer. Want to ask for Council's, agreement to remove Resolution 8.1 and replace with change to banking permission. Also add bylaws 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, and Resolution 8B, which is a community grants program. Okay. I will ask for disclosure of monetary interest. I have none. We have no delegations. We have no adoption of minutes. Any reports this evening? No? Okay, we'll go right into our bylaws. Our first bylaw is with Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize a memorandum of understanding with the Downtown Business Association be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Alford. Bylaw 10128-2020, that a bylaw to authorize a memorandum of understanding with the Downtown Business Association be received, read a first time, and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor McGuire?
Traditionally, the Downtown Business Association has had a summer student that works on beautification in the downtown core, picking up trash and cleaning up the space. This year, we're going to work with the DBA to collaborate with the town and share resources in order to increase the productivity of the student.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Third reading, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize a memorandum of understanding with the Downtown Business Association be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10128-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Alford. Bylaw 10128-2020. The bylaw to authorize a memorandum of understanding with the Downtown Business Association be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10128-2020. All in favor? Carried. Second bylaw is to Councillor Alford, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting lands locally known as the Bellamy Farm subdivision lands to amend the existing site-specific special exception of the residential type 5, exception 4, R5-4, zone by adding additional provisions for the street road dwelling houses be received and read a first time and is taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor McGuire. Bylaw 10129-2020, and a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94, respecting lands locally known as the Bellamy Farm subdivision lands to amend the existing site-specific special exception of residential type 5, hyphen exception 4 in brackets R5-4 zone by adding additional provision for the street road dwelling houses be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor Alford?
This bylaw sets the stage for the part lot control to come forward so that the townhouses in Bellamy Farms can have a smaller, in the townhouses with 3, the middle unit will have a smaller lot. And this sets the stage for that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Can I have a third reading, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting lands locally known as the Bellamy Farm subdivision lands to amend the existing site-specific special exception of the residential type 5 exception 4 R5-4 zoning by adding additional provisions for street road dwelling houses be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10129-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McGuire. Bylaw 10129-2020, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94, respecting lands locally known as the Bellamy Farm subdivision lands, to amend the existing site-specific special exception of residential type 5, hyphen exception 4 in brackets R5-4, zone by adding additional provisions for the street road dwelling houses be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10129-2020. All in favor? Carried. Councillor McKenna, you have the next bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Allen that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls provide an emergency exemption to parking bylaw 7252-97 respecting parking payment at metered spaces and at the municipal lot, William and Market, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Allen, bylaw 10130-2020, that a council of the corporation of the town of Smiths Falls provide an emergency exception to the parking bylaw 7252-97, respecting parking payment at metered spaces and at the municipal parking lot, in brackets, William at Market, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Yes, Your Worship, as we know, our Beckwith Street is under construction, parking's at a premium, and in spite of the recent news to remain at home, if you do need to come downtown for essential services, we want to make it as easy as possible for you, and the municipality is raising fees on its public parking lots.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Third reading, please.
Yes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls provide an emergency exemption to parking bylaw 7252-97, respecting parking payment at metered spaces and at the municipal lot at William and Market, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10130-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Allen, bylaw 10130-2020, that a council of the corporation of the town of Smiths Falls provide an emergency exception to the parking bylaw 7252-97, respecting parking payment at metered spaces and at the municipal parking lot at William and Market, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10130-2020. All in favor? Carried. On to Councillor Allen for the next.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10131-2020, that a bylaw to authorize an emergency exemption respecting penalties for late payments incurred from the date of passing of this bylaw until it is repealed, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Allen, second by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10131-2020, that a bylaw to authorize an emergency exemption respecting penalties for the late payments incurred from the date of passing of the bylaw until it is repealed, be received, read a first time, and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor Allen?
Yes, there might be some very difficult times for our citizens and businesses in the next while, and so this allows deferring of penalties on outstanding payments, tax bills and utility bills and so forth. And it's just going to hopefully help in the short term, we hope, not the long term.
So, thank you. Any further discussion? And go to the third reading, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10131-2020, that a bylaw to authorize an emergency exemption respecting penalties for late payments incurred from the date of passing of the bylaw until it is repealed, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10131-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, second by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10131-2020, the bylaw to authorize an emergency exemption respecting penalties for late payments incurred from the date of passing of the bylaw until it is repealed, being now for the third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10131-2020. All in favor? Carried. And Councillor Alford, you have the next item. Item 7.5, procedural bylaw.
Is this the electronic participation?
Yes.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw 7852-2004 to allow for e-participation at council and committee of the whole meetings during a declared emergency be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McGuire, bylaw 10132-2020. It's a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw 7852-2004 to allow for e-participation at council and committee of the whole meetings during a declared emergency be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor Alford?
Yes, Your Worship. These are unusual times we're living in, and that's calling for some unusual changes to the way that we normally do business. This will allow for us to have a quorum without having a quorum in exactly the same room, so that we can move the business forward of the town and do that electronically through this change to the procedural bylaw.
Thank you. Any further discussion? The third reading, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw 7852-2004 to allow for e-participation at council committee of the whole meetings, signed meetings during a declared emergency be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10132-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McGuire, bylaw 10132-2020, that a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw 7852-2004 to allow for e-participation at council and committee of the whole meetings during a declared emergency be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10132-2020. All in favor? Carried. And that's it for our bylaws. We have one miscellaneous motion, which is with Councillor, two. Two. Councillor McKenna first.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Allen. Banking permission, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the necessary documentation appointing Sean Panko and Malcolm Morris as signing officers for all banking procedures with Lorraine Allen or Jay Brennan and Kerry Costello, Nadine Bennett, or Janet Gazile as their alternates respectively. And further, that Malcolm Morris, Ellen Leach, Nadine Bennett, Brandy Phillips, Brianne Harper, Janet Gazile, Vicki Thompson, Diana Sullivan, Sandra Waters, Megan Perry, and Kerry Costello be authorized to pick up from and deliver to the Royal Bank various banking documents on behalf of the corporation. And further, that resolution 2019-07-204 be hereby rescinded.
Any discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Yes, it's a motion to authorize people within the employ of the town or elected officials to conduct the banking business on the town. And this was some housekeeping. We've added a name. And have we removed anyone? So we've removed a name and added a name of a new employee to this standard procedures.
Okay, any further discussion? Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Allen. Banking permission, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the necessary documentation appointing Sean Panko and Malcolm Morris as signed officers for all banking procedures with Lorraine Allen or Jay Brennan and Kerry Costello, Nadine Bennett, or Janet Gazile as their alternates respectively. And further, that Malcolm Morris, Ellen Leach, Nadine Bennett, Brandy Phillips, Brianne Harper, Janet Gazile, Vicki Thompson, Dana Sullivan, Sandra Waters, Megan Perry, Frontenac Law Enforcement Officer, and Kerry Costello be authorized to pick up from and deliver to the Royal Bank various banking documents on behalf of the corporation. And further, that the resolution 2019-07-2004 be hereby rescinded. All in favor? Carried. And our final motion is with Councillor Alford.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councillor McGuire, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls direct staff to suspend the 2020 Community Grant Program, and further, that the remaining funds of $17,000 be earmarked for food security and issues related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Discussion, Councillor Alford?
I think this is just another way in which the municipality is taking steps to support as many people as we can with free parking for 2 hours, with this donation or this earmarked for food security issues. There are a lot of things that we're not able to do for our constituents. The province and the feds will take care of that, but I think we took a huge step tonight in doing what the municipality can to help.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McGuire, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls direct staff to suspend the 2020 Community Grant Program, and further, the remaining funds of $17,000 be earmarked for food security and the issues related to the COVID-19 pandemic. All in favor? Carried. Inquiries or announcements? Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just, as the citizens of Smiths Falls are aware, through an arrangement with Lanark County, which Smiths Falls residents pay a portion of the services that we receive from the county, and including in that are during this crisis that we're involved with, There are many updates at the county website, and I encourage the public to go there. To our long-term care nursing home, Lanark Lodge has made significant changes and restricting access, so please visit that before you go and see mom or dad. Social services, which is Ontario Works and others, they've ramped up and their staff are working flat out. Like our local municipal staff in Smiths Falls, the county staff are doing service above and beyond the call, and the uptake in Ontario Works applications is going up, and they've done a number of things that can be found on their website. And the Housing and Children's Services are also working overtime to make sure that those services continue. I'd end on the county services that people with a developmental disability and other really vulnerable people, the county is taking extra interest in and making sure they're reaching out and protecting people that may not understand isolation and some of the protocols that we're going through. So as good citizens, if you see a neighbor or friend who's in need of those services, please reach out. So I thank our friends at the county. The county will be meeting, Mayor Pank and I will be attending a teleconference on April the 8th to keep the county business moving forward, much like the town of Smiths Falls. If I may, Public Health Unit, as we all know, is leading is providing leadership around the local pandemic. The Board of Health, of Public Health, which I'm a member and the town representative on, is again having a teleconference tomorrow for 1 hour with the Medical Officer of Health. And again, go to their website to get the facts. There's a lot of information out there, but you'll get the facts at the Public Health, Lanark Leeds Grenville Public Health Unit. So business is carrying on. Your elected officials, your municipal employees are working their very best right now, and we encourage you to be patient and to get the information you need and reach out if you're in any difficulty. Finally, I want to remind you that the healthcare workers in particular are putting themselves in the front lines of the dangers and emergency responders. This started, I believe, in Italy, but at 7:30 every night, if you wanted to make some noise around something really important, like honking your horn about really important things, this action is taking place at 7:30 every day, and you can honk your horn, play some music, bang a pot, do something to acknowledge the wonderful healthcare workers that are putting their lives on the line for you. So 7:30, you don't need to start your car. Please continue to save your gasoline on the planet, but you can sit at home and think about the first responders and emergency health workers out there. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councillor Alford, you've something to add as
Just,
well?
I so echo the gratitude of so many of us for what the healthcare workers are doing. And there's another bunch of very important people in Smiths Falls that are require kindness and compassion and protection, and that is the people that are helping to feed us all. So if you are going to a grocery store, if you are going to a pharmacy, if you are getting takeout from one of our local businesses, please be gentle with them and thankful to them, and because you certainly wouldn't want to get yourself banned and not be able to buy groceries. So you really need to treat these people the way they need to be treated, the way they should be treated, because they are putting themselves on the line every day. And I think we need to be grateful for that and take care of them and take care of each other.
Thank you. And I guess on behalf of council, I want to express our gratitude to the entire community, understanding that these are unprecedented times. It's something we have not lived through. It's not something we would have expected even a couple of weeks ago. And it's very challenging. We understand our business community is suffering and will continue to suffer. We know that there are numerous people in our community who will not be able to go to work by midweek based on the changes we're hearing provincially, and all the measures we all need to take as individuals to ensure that we keep our citizens and our families safe. And we can't stress enough how critically important it is to apply proper social distancing and really stay home except for the absolutely essential needs of providing food and medicines, I guess, for your family. And just to recognize, I guess, the patience and understanding out there, and as Councillor Alford said, Sometimes patients can wear thin, but I think it's important that people recognize or practice empathy and understand that there are people out there who are dealing with this crisis in a way much greater than we do as individual citizens, and people who have to be out there taking a higher degree of risk than what we do when we're behind closed doors. I also want to read parts of a press release from the Brockville-Smiths Falls District Hospital, which came out today, which is very relevant to COVID-19 and to our communities, our broader communities. So the following communication is an update from the Brockville-Smiths Falls District Hospital regarding how we are working together to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to assure you that there's a dedicated team of professionals at our hospital who have the passion, expertise, and focus to tackle the situation. Our goal is to care for the sick, keep our workforce healthy, and prevent the spread of COVID-19 across our hospitals. We are following the guidance from our local public health officials and directives from the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Ontario. These are mandated so that the seriously ill people of our communities are looked after in the coming days and weeks. Protocols and procedures are being implemented across the organization to protect and maintain our high standard of patient care. There may be changes in the future with short notice. We ask for your patience and support and that you follow the directions that are given to you by the government officials: hand washing, social distancing, staying home, isolating when ill. As a result, there are changes to the Brockville-Smiths Falls District Hospital daily operations. We are open, but should you need care for symptoms that need urgent medical attention. So we're open should you need care for symptoms that need urgent medical attention. Come to our emergency department. You should also continue to call 911 for medical emergencies. Changes to operations, entry to the hospital during the COVID-19 pandemic. Use only the emergency department entrances at both the Perth and Smiths Falls sites. When you arrive, please note the signs and colored lines on the floor at each entrance. These are for social distancing. Please do not move to the next colored line till the line ahead is completely clear. Mandatory screening. All persons must complete the mandatory screening before entry to the hospital. It is located at the emergency department's entrances. Please provide accurate information during the mandatory screening to help us protect you, our patients, and our staff. COVID screening in the emergency department. If you're coming or have been directed to come to the emergency department because of COVID-19 or respiratory concerns, please call ahead to our hospitals if you're able. For the Smiths Falls site, that's 613-283-2330. When you arrive, you'll be asked to clean your hands and wear a mask and wait in the designated area. Visiting protocols. The hospital is closed for routine visiting. Exceptions: one visitor will be allowed for maternity, critically ill patients having surgery, and patients receiving end-of-life care. These visitors must successfully pass mandatory screening to be permitted entry to the hospital. We're encouraging virtual and telephone visits with our patients, as we know that family support is an important part of healing. High priority surgeries, procedures, and clinics. Only urgent and high priority surgeries, procedures, and clinic visits will continue until further notice. You'll be contacted by hospital staff or your physician to reschedule all other non-urgent and elective appointments. If while you are waiting for the above and your condition worsens, please contact your physician or nurse practitioner for guidance and possible reassessment. If you are concerned and it is urgent, visit the local emergency department. COVID-19 Assessment Center at the Smiths Falls site of the Brockville-Smiths Falls District Hospital. At the present time, patients will need an appointment to be seen at our COVID-19 Assessment Center, and such appointments are generated by referral only. Referrals can be sent from the following: Telehealth Ontario, Leeds, Grenville, and Lanark District Health Unit, primary care providers, family doctor, nurse practitioner, or clinic. If you're referred to the Assessment Center at Smiths Falls District Hospital, please note that testing will only be performed on patients who meet the current criteria for testing. The Smiths Falls site outside the main entrance on Elmsley Street North will be where the Community Assessment Center will be. You may notice a tent was set up there, I believe over the weekend. Patients will drive up to the main entrance and remain in their vehicle while an in-vehicle assessment is completed. Currently, there is not a COVID-19 assessment center in Perth. The hours of operation will be beginning tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. will run from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. 7 days per week. Of course, public members concerned about COVID-19 should complete a self-assessment online at covid19ontario.ca self-assessment and follow the guidance provided. The public can also call a telehealth nurse 24 hours a day to discuss their symptoms, who will provide information on further action. Telehealth Ontario can be reached at toll-free 1-866-797-0000 0000. Public members, of course, can also call their primary care provider for advice and guidance. It's also stay current. Credible source, we know this is changing all the time. We know with announcements today from the province and the federal government means further restrictions on operations, and we know that more information coming tomorrow. For the hospital, it suggests credible sources of information. We continue to follow those. It's important to obtain up-to-date information from the Public Health Ontario, our local health unit, of course, and the Ministry of Health. So, again, these are challenging times. They're unprecedented times. We ask that all our citizens practice proper social distancing, all the care that could be necessary. The more we can do to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in our community. We don't yet have a diagnosed case within our catchment area, within Leeds or Leeds, Grenville, or Lanark County, or Smiths Falls. We believe it's probably a matter of time before we do have a diagnosed case. The more we can do to mitigate the risk, the better opportunity we're giving our healthcare professionals to manage the risk effectively and give people the care that they're going to need within our hospital. And that's it for my announcement. Anything further this evening? Yes, Councillor Alford.
I would just like one of our hairdressers in town that are unable to work, if they could put something up on the YouTube or somewhere about how you cut your own hair.
We may need that before long, yes. We see Councillor McGuire went ahead and got it himself looked after. Motion for adjournment is with Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford that this council adjourn its proceedings at 6:23 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Alford. Adjournment. This council adjourns proceedings at 6:23 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. This may be our last council meeting for a while where we are present. We look forward to serving our community virtually in the coming weeks. All in favor? We're adjourned.